Good evening, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Welcome back and nice to have you here. So, today is October 28, 2021. So, I'm going to share some news with you and reading and some videos. So, thank you again for coming back. Let's get started. The first one is about the tragic news happened in Dase. Tragic news from Dase and the Kombolcha front. Four ethnic Oromo senior federal army officers were assassinated by Amhara Militia and the Fano armed group. These military officers were accused of providing aid to TDF, Tigray Defense Force, in ongoing military operations. Even if this accusation is true, it is the responsibility of federal authority to investigate and punish the accusers according to the federal military law. Fano group and the Amhara Militia are becoming out of control and taking the law into their own hands. According to various media reports, they are also accused of exposing Oromos and other army unit members to fire lines and killing them from behind if they are intent to retreat from TDF heavy artilleries. The following are the four Oromos tragically massacred by Amhara Militia and the Fano armed groups in Dase. One, Shalaka or Commander Ahmed Abrahim. Two, Shalaka Girma Faisa. So, three, Colonel Haptamu Magersa. Four, Colonel Abdisa Adunya. So these are the four senior military officers who are working for Ethiopian army, but unfortunately they were assassinated by Fano and by Amhara special forces. This is not their authority to do that, but at this time the channel of command is broken, the system is broken. So Fanos and the Amhara militias, they can do whatever they want to do at this time. So if they are suspect others for something, they can just assassinate them. They are doing it, and the Oromos, these are the Oromo senior military officers, they just assassinate them. This is the situation now. This is very bad. This is very bad. Complete authority is given for Fano and Amhara special forces to conduct unlawful acts against militias or army officers who doesn't belong to the Amhara ethnic background. So it's very bad. It's very tragic. And Oromos and others are suffering in both ways. Number one, the war doesn't belong to them. It's not their war. Second, they don't get appreciation for sacrificing their lives. They are just wasting their lives for something not valuable for them. So this is the situation. In another way, also the Amharas are anti-Oromos. They are, expanding into Oromia region and northern part of Oromia, and attacking the Wollo residents, and crossing into Wallega region, also attacking Oromos over there. They are fighting. So the Oromos are, just losing their valuable life for something worthless. They are helping their enemies. They are losing their valuable life without any appreciation. All these young kids from Oromia and other regions, they are losing their lives for nothing. On the other side, on the other hand, Dr. Debretsion Gebremichael, president of the Tigray region president, gave the press briefing on the situation on Desse and the Kombolcha operations. He advised both the residents of Desse and the Kombolcha to stay indoors and protect their properties. He told them TDF is not against Amhara general public. Tigray Defense Force is fighting against Abiy Ahmed, his supporters and messengers. Dr. Debretsion also said TDF is fighting to bring individuals and groups who committed genocide and other atrocities against Tigrayans. Dr. Debretsion also warned those in Ethiopia military to surrender to TDF peacefully or run away from the war front to save their lives. He said nothing can prevent TDF from moving forward and capturing Desse, Kombolcha, and other cities from Abiy Ahmed and other criminal forces associated with him. So that's a briefing, part of a briefing. It's more than this, but this is part of the briefing provided by Dr. Debretsion Gebremichael, the Tigray region president. So he talked about the future of Ethiopia. How can TDF can play a role, especially in inclusive dialogue for the peace of the country. But he insisted the TDF, his forces are not fighting against Ethiopians in the general public. They are targeting those who committed crime, genocide, human rights violations, who destroyed Tigrayan properties in Mekelle, in other areas, in Tigray in general. They are not against civilians. They are not against the general public, as the media try to propagate. Ethiopia airstrike on Tigray kills 10 hospital rebel sources. Ethiopia military on Thursday carried out an airstrike on the capital of the war-torn Tigray region that a hospital official said killed 10 people. The government said the strike, the latest in campaign of air bombardment, hit a factory in Mekelle used by the Tigray People's Liberation Front. This is a government claim. The Airforce destroyed the second part of Mesfen industrial engineering. The facility was used by TPLF terrorist group for maintaining its military equipment, said government spokeswoman Salamawit Kasa. So this is the government side claim. Dr. Hailom Kabada, research director at Mekelle's Haider Referral Hospital, said a residential area was hit and casualties were inflicted. The death toll reached 10, he said, up from his earlier count that put the number of dead at 6. and listed 21 people injured. The Tigray Communication Affairs Bureau, a TPLF-linked information channel, also reported casualties and said the strike had hit a residential area. Earlier, TPLF spokesman Getachew Reda confirmed the strike on Mekelle and said the rebels' air defense units were engaging in an enemy jet. Much of northern Ethiopia is under a communication blackout and access for journalists is restricted, making battlefield claims difficult to independently verify. Tigray was pounded by nearly daily aerial bombardments last week as the military stepped up its use of air power in the year-long war against the TPLF. The government said the facilities bombed in northern and western Tigray were military in nature and aiding the TPLF, the former ruling party in the region. The United Nations said 2 strikes on Mekelle on October 18 killed 3 children and wounded several other people. Another person died in a later strike. Control of the skies, along with the superior manpower, is one of the few remaining areas where the federal government holds a military advantage over the rebels. The bombings have drawn international censor and disrupted United Nations access to the region, where an estimated 400,000 people 400,000 people face famine-like conditions under a de facto aid blockade. Credit AFP. So the bombardment continue and is not changing the situation in a Kombolcha front or other front, but they are bombing for the time being. We don't know what the aim, except to destroy public property and destroy public life. There is no military target. I'll show you the video from Tigray Media House I shared. There is no military target. Civilians are killed, civilians are injured, and civilian properties are destroyed. Let's listen. I won't show you. It's in Tigray language, but you can understand. It's the target. Yeah, this is a civilian. All civilians. ኣብቲ ሎሚ ኣብ ከተማ መቐለ ክፍለ ከተማ ሰሜን ቀበሌ ባዳ ሓሙሽተ ከባቢ ደንቦስኮ ዝበሃል መንደር ዝተፈጸመ መጥቃዕቲ ወላጓ ህዝቢ ዓለም ንምድንጋር ኣብ መስፍን ኢንዱስትሪያል ኢንጂነሪንግ ኢላሙ ዝሓለወ ደብዳብ ኣካይደ ክብል እቲ ፋሽታዊ ስርዓት እንተፍለጠ እቲ ሓቂ ግና ኣብ መንበር ኣባይቲ ሰላማውያን ሰባት ዝተፈጸመ ኮይኑ ብርክት ዝበሉ ሰባት እውን ግዳይት መጥቃዕቲ ምዃኖም ሚድያታት ትግራይ ህዝብን መንግስትን ትግራይን ኣረጋጊጾም ኣለዉ እቲ ሎሚ ከባቢ ሰዓት 4 ፈረቓን ዝተፈጸመ መጥቃዕቲ ኣብ ዝለዓለ ብራኸ ካብ ዝዝምብያ ነፈርቲ ዝተፈጸመን ልዕሊ ፍርቂ ሰዓታት
This is what Abiy Ahmed is doing with the advice of Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea and some other advisors to hurt the Tigrayan people.
ካብ ኣጋምሸት እንዳሓር ድማ ቁጥሪ ሞቲ 12 መውጽሑን ገና ሓልዋቶም ዘይተፈለጡ ሰባት ድማ ከም ዘለውን ተሓቢሩሎም
ኣብ ሃይደር ሪፈራል ስታል ድንገተኛ ክፍል መተሓበር ነፍሲ ያው ለማዓልቲ ናይ ኣየር ሓደጋ ያጋጥምና ዛሊ እስራኤል ሸውዓት ሓደጋ ያጋጥምና ሰዓት 4 ፈረቓ አካባቢ ናብ ድንገተኛ ክፍል መጥየምና ነይሮም እቲ ናይ ሎሚ ደብዳብ ፍሊ ዘብሎ ኣብ ጻቕ ዝበሉ ኣባይቲ ዝተፈጸመ ስለ ዝኾነ 12 ኣባይቲ ሙሉእ ብሙሉእ ዝዓነው ኮይኖም ብፍላይቲ ዝበጽሐ ጉዳት እውን ኣብ ውስና ስድራ ከም ዝበጽሐ ፍልፍላትና ካብቲ ቦታ
ሓቢሮም ዝበጽሐ ጉዳት ክሻብ ሕዚ ብዕሊ ከም ዘይተፈለጠን when you are fighting other countries you can expect such damage for such destruction, but within your own country, it's ridiculous. It's painful to see this.
እታ ዝፈሓሳ ገመድ ኣብ ክሳዱ ትሽንቀቕ ምህላው ምርግጋጹ ስዒቡ ዝወስዶ ዘሎ ናይ ጻዕሪ ሞት ስጉምቲ ምዃኑ ተዓዘብቲ ይገልጹ። ሎማዓንቲ 18 ጥቅምቲ ኣብ ከተማ መቐለ ዝተፈጸመ ደብዳብ ነፈርቲ ኮነ ተባሂሉ ሲቪላውያን ዕላማ ዝገበረ ይክብል ወታደራዊ
Okay, so I just try to show you what the government claims and what is the reality on the ground in Tigray. The government is claiming they are hitting military targets, the building affiliated with TDF forces, but no. What they are hitting is just a civilian building, residential area, injuring civilians and killing civilians. That is the reality. And the global community, I don't know, maybe something coming in the coming days. I know the United Nations Human Rights Council report is coming in November 3rd. Also expected European Union sanction and some kind of sanction from the United States. But so far, there is no vocal condemnation of this air bombardment in Tigray, destroying property, destroying human lives, and concerned citizens media call on the international community to implement no-fly zone before too late. They should implement in Tigray. Abiy Ahmed lost the war, but he is using the only one left advantage, destroying life, destroying public properties by using Airforce. I don't know who is giving them advice. I think maybe Eritrean president is giving him because he wants to see the destroyed Tigray region, next neighbor. That's why the weakest Tigray region in that area, so he can manipulate it and extend his dictatorial leadership in that country. Okay. World Bank halts Sudan operation in blow to coup leaders, strikes calls against support. Khartoum. The World Bank halted disbursement for operations in Sudan on Wednesday in response to the military seizure of power from transitional government, while state oil company workers, doctors, pilots joined civilian groups opposing the takeover. Thousands of people have taken to the streets since Monday coup, led by Armed Forces Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and several have been killed in clash with security forces. Burhan has dismissed the joint civilian military council set up to steer the country to democratic elections following the overthrow of autocrat Umar al-Bashir in a popular uprising in April 2019. He said he acted to stop the country slipping into civil war, but the World Bank decision to pause payments and stop processing new operations is a setback to his plan for one of Africa's poorest countries. After isolation from the international financial system across 3 decades of Bashir's rule, Sudan achieved full re-engagement with the bank in March and gained access to $2 billion in financing. I am greatly concerned by recent events in Sudan, and I fear the dramatic impact this can have on the country's social and economic recovery and development, World Bank President David Malpass said in a statement from Washington. Abdullah Hamdok, Prime Minister in the deposed transitional government, had thought
World Bank re-engagement as a major accomplishment and was depending on the funding for several large development projects. The government had instituted harsh economic reforms that succeeded in achieving rapid arrears, clearance, and debt relief, and renewed financing from the World Bank and IMF. An IMF spokeswoman said the fund was monitoring development, but it was premature to comment. United Nations Special Representative Volker Perthes met Burhan on Wednesday and told him the United Nations want to see a return to the transition process and the immediate release of all those arbitrarily detained. UN spokesman Stephen Dujarric told reporters in New York. The European Union Foreign Relations Commissioner Joseph Borrell wrote on Twitter that he had spoken with Hamdok and expressed support for a civilian-led transition. The African Union said it has suspended Sudan's participation in all activities until the restoration of the civilian-led authority. Credit Reuters news agency. So the military coup, they are not successful. So they are condemned by global community, by suspension of U.S. Aid, about $700 million plus other. And now the World Bank suspended its operation, and the IMF is watching. And the people, the doctors, and other workers also joined the protesters. So they will not succeed. They will not succeed. These military people, they will not succeed. They have to listen to the civilian leadership. They have to come back to the transitional government and find out, about the future of their country. They cannot just take all the power by force. It's not working. And the Sudanese people are not like Ethiopians. Ethiopians are silent in mostly cases, even though the living condition in Ethiopia is miserable under Abiy Ahmed. Miserable. People cannot afford to buy bread. Life expense is high. Inflation is high. Unemployment is high. But the people, no, they are not acting. They are still sleeping. Despite all ongoing humanitarian crisis, ongoing war, civilian casualties, air bombardment, nobody is coming out to protest. It's surprising, Ethiopians. Surprising. You don't see any opposition. You don't see any challenge to Abiy Ahmed. But in Sudan, the protest started with bread price, when the bread price became high, and plus other problems. That is supposed to be the citizens' response. When things change, challenge the government. Challenge the government without fear. I know people will die, but you have to challenge the government when the people suffering, when unemployment is high, when the inflation is high, when people cannot afford to buy bread, when the war is going for almost 1 year now. Ethiopians, you need to wake up. You need to wake up. The country is destroyed under Abiy Ahmed. I don't know how long you're going to be silent. I know you still some, the second largest ethnic group is behind Abiy Ahmed. That's that we have the challenge in that country. That's why you don't see that much opposition. They are blindly behind him, supporting him, whatever he's doing, whatever he's destroying in Tigray and other areas. Okay. United Nations calls on Sudan military to restore civilian government. You see, pressure from different directions on military coup. The United Nations, most powerful body, also expressed solidarity with the Sudanese people and affirmed its readiness to support efforts to realize Sudan's democratic transition and the people's aspiration for an inclusive, peaceful, stable, democratic, and prosperous future. The press statement, approved by all 15 council members, went through several revisions, diplomats said, mainly to address objections from Russia, which didn't want to condemn the military takeover as originally proposed in the British drafted text. The final version instead expressed the Security Council's serious concerns about the military's October 25 takeover, the suspension of some transitional institutions, the declaration of a state of emergency, and the detention of Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok, as well as other civilian members of the transitional government. It noted Hamdok's reported return to his residence. Yeah, he was released. Protests denouncing Monday's takeover have continued in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, and elsewhere, and many businesses shut in response to calls for strikes. The coup led by General Abdel Fattah Burhan threatens to halt Sudan's transition to democracy, which began after the ousting of long-time ruling Omar al-Bashir in a popular uprising. Council members underscored that any attempt to undermine the democratic transition process in Sudan puts at risk Sudan's security, stability, and development. They called on all parties to exercise the utmost restraint, refrain from the use of violence, and emphasized the importance of full respect for human rights, including the right to peaceful assembly and freedom of expression. The Security Council urged all parties to engage in dialogue without preconditions in order to enable the full implementation of the constitutional document and the Juba Peace Agreement, which underpin Sudan's democratic transition, and it expressed strong support for regional efforts to end the crisis. Credit AP, Associated Press. So I think the military will change its position because it is facing global condemnation and internal condemnation from its own citizens, condemnation from European Union, condemnation from United Nations Security Council. No way they can succeed. They can pursue in their military coup. No way. They cannot survive. They are removed, suspended from African Union. World Bank suspended them. IMF may be next, so they cannot survive. They have to listen to their own citizens and the global community. Go back to democratic process. Okay, Facebook changed name to Meta, META, as it refocuses on virtual reality. Facebook Inc., FB.O, is now called Meta, the company said on Thursday, in a rebrand that focuses on building the metaverse, a shared virtual environment that it bets will be the successor to the mobile internet. The name change comes as the world's largest social media company battles criticism from lawmakers and regulators over its market power, algorithm decisions, and the policing of abuses on its services. CEO Mark Zuckerberg, speaking at the company's live-streamed virtual and augmented reality conference, said the new name reflected its work investing in the metaverse rather than its namesake social media service, which will continue to be called Facebook. The metaverse is a term coined in the dystopian novel Snow Crash 3 decades ago and now attracting buzz in Silicon Valley. It refers broadly to the idea of a shared virtual realm which can be accessed by people using different devices. Right now, our brand is so tightly linked to one product that it cannot possibly represent everything that we are doing today, let alone in the future, said Zuckerberg. The company, which has invested heavily in augmented and virtual reality, said the change would bring together its different apps and technologies under one new brand. It said it would not change its corporate structure. The tech giant, which reports about 2.9 billion monthly users, has faced increasing scrutiny in recent years from global lawmakers and regulators. In the latest controversy, whistleblowers and former Facebook employee Frances Haugen leaked documents which she said showed the company choose profit over user safety. Haugen has in recent weeks testified before a US Senate subcommittee and lawmakers in the United Kingdom Parliament. Zuckerberg earlier this week said the documents were being used to paint a false picture. The company said in a blog post that it intends to start trading under the new stock ticker it has reserved MVRS on December 1. On Thursday, it unveiled a new sign at its headquarters in Menlo Park, California, replacing its thumbs up like logo with a blue infinity shape. Facebook shares closed 1.5 higher at 316.92 on Thursday. Credit Reuters. So the new Facebook symbol is right. This one, if you can see, I don't know. So this is a new symbol instead of thumbs up. Facebook, the original one. So that's Facebook, and there we go. These are a couple of statements from Secretary Blinken. One is call with Sudanese Prime Minister Hamdok, and the other one is call with African Union Chairperson Musa Faki Muhammad. Okay. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke with Sudanese Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok. The Secretary welcomed the Prime Minister's release from custody and reiterated his call on Sudanese military forces to release all civilian leaders in detention and to ensure their safety. He also expressed his deep concern about the ongoing military takeover and repeated the imperative for military forces to use restraint and avoid violence in responding to demonstrators. The Secretary emphasized U.S. support for the civilian-led transition to democracy and for a return to the principles of Sudan's transitional framework as laid out in the 2019 Constitutional Declaration and the 2020 Juba Peace Agreement. He noted the growing chorus of international voice condemning the military takeover and supporting the calls by the Sudanese people for civilian leadership, democracy, and peace. So that is a statement from Secretary Clinton on the situation in Sudan. This one is the call made between Secretary of State Blinken and African Union Chairperson Musa Faki Mahamat. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken spoke yesterday with African Union Commission Chairperson Musa Faki Mahamat. The Secretary welcomed the decision by the African Union Peace and Security Council to suspend Sudan, noting the important leadership role the African Union plays on democracy and stability in Africa. The Secretary and the Chairperson agreed that Sudan must return to civilian leadership in accordance with the 2019 Constitutional Declaration. The Chairperson and the Secretary reaffirmed the importance of the rights of the Sudanese people to peacefully assemble and express their demand for civilian rule, free from armed or other forceful interference. So that is the statement or the conversation between Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and Musa Faki of African Union chairman. So there is a pressure, as I said, on Sudanese coup leaders from all angles. So there is no way they can survive. Okay, let's share some videos and finish today's presentation.
They were briefed by Parfait Onanga Anyanga, the special envoy for the Horn of Africa, and he said the recent coup in Sudan reflects the shaky transitions that many countries are respects international humanitarian law, upholds human rights and fundamental freedoms. And lastly, fourthly, that he emphasized that Afghans and the region also need a country that is secure, that no one is that is not a haven for terrorism or a center for drug trafficking, and stressing that these are all issues on which the region has a shared interest and which all of us must speak with one voice. This morning, you heard the Security Council met on the situation between Sudan and South Sudan. They were briefed by Parfait Onanga Anyanga, the special envoy for the Horn of Africa. And he said the recent coup in Sudan reflects the shaky transitions that many countries are going through. Given the unfolding situation, he added, his hope is that the recent positive trend between Sudan and South Sudan will not be derailed. Encouragingly, he said, Sudan and South Sudan have been so far deepening their relationship, epitomized by several high-level visits and initiatives. And the Undersecretary General for Peacekeeping Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, also briefed, telling members of the Council that it is encouraging that both South Sudan and Sudan have now established national committees on the question of Abyei, and the warming of the relations is also visible in Abyei. He said it is too early to know what the impact of this week's developments in Khartoum will mean for the peacekeeping mission in Abyei on a day-to-day basis, but he added that all parties in Sudan are and have been strong supporters of the mission. Turning to Ethiopia, nearly a year since the start of the conflict in the north, the situation remains unpredictable, volatile, and highly tense. The fighting has been reported in multiple locations, as well as in Amhara and Afar. Hostilities in both regions are blocking the delivery of humanitarian assistance to hundreds of thousands of people in need. As mentioned yesterday, fuel for the humanitarian response has not entered Tigray since early August, forcing many humanitarian operations to significantly reduce or suspend their activities. Between the 14th and 20th of October, only about 38,000 people in Zata in the southern zone received food assistance due to lack of fuel. That's only 4.4% of the estimated 870,000 people requiring assistance every week. No food distribution was reported in other areas during the period due to fuel shortages, a communications blackout, and the fluid security context in the region. Provision of food, water trucking operations, and health services have also been significantly reduced. We continue to call on all parties to the conflict to urgently and immediately facilitate free, sustained, and safe movement of humanitarian workers and supplies in Tigray, Afar, and Amhara.
Okay.
The latest report of the Secretary.
So that is the situation. That's the update from United Nations about Ethiopia. So we have a huge problem. It's already repeatedly reported, the challenge we are facing in Tigray, especially on humanitarian aid, fuel, cash, and other services. So we have already tremendous problem over there. So what Abiy is doing, instead of resolving this problem, he is creating more problems. How he is very, Gujile, they call him Gujile. It's a funny name for him. So the Gujile, instead of resolving the problem in Tigray, he is bombarding residential areas, causing misery, causing bloodshed in that area. He is not listening to anybody. The United Nations, the US, European Union, all are calling, even African leaders are calling on him to settle this issue, to end this war, to end this suffering. What he's doing? Creating more misery, creating more bloodshed, bombarding civilian infrastructure, destroying human lives again. The region is already suffering tremendously. No medicine is coming, no food is coming, no service, no telephone, no internet. So this is enemy, really real enemy. Ethiopia has a very real enemy. You cannot even do such things to when you are facing war with other countries. Forget about within your own country. I never seen this, such cruelty, by. I heard about Saddam Hussein, attacking Turkish, through bombardment, but he paid heavy price at the end. It could come to Abiy Ahmed too. Yeah, it might not be now, but he will be responsible for what he's doing in Tigray and other areas in the coming months, years. Nobody knows when the accountability will come. And then the international community, I think they should be outraged about this air bombardment and do something. Do something just for humanity cases. Stop this madman from bombing civilians, bombing civilian structure, from destroying life. I call on the international community to, adapt no-fly zone before too late. So, very bad. Okay, I have one more video to share. Then we'll finish today's presentation. This one, I want to show you, those very young, could be, under age. Last time I reported on soldiers, 15 years old, but the government increased by 3 and make them 18 years on the record. That's a crime by itself. It's a crime. So you will see from those surrender to Tigray Defense Force, very young kids, very young. They are not supposed to be in the military. They're supposed to be in elementary school or middle school. So Abiy Ahmed, he cares about his power in Arat Kilo. He don't care about lives. He don't care about those young kids forced to join the army. through false propaganda, through false, other misleading informations, using their weakness. Their weakness is like economically, they are very in a bad shape, no employment. So let's see some of the pictures, some of the people. This is from OMN. We buy any car. We buy any car. We buy any car. Any. Okay, here it is.
ሶስት የብልጽግና ወታደራዊ ተሽከርካሪ ታጣቂ ኃይል ከረፋቸዋል። መንግስት ወታደሮችን ከነሙሉ ትጥቃቸው ለትግራይ ሰራዊት እጅ መስጠቱን የትግራይ ሚዲያዎች እየዘገቡ ናቸው። ሻለቃ ፍስሐ የብልጽግና ሰራዊት የትግራይ ሰራዊት እጁን የሰጠው በደሴ ግንባር መሆኑን
Yeah, this one. This is what I'm talking about. Look, this girl. Look, and the next to her, very young. These are all Ethiopian soldiers surrendered to TDF. Look. Look, that's also very young.
በአሁኑ ወቅት የብልጽግና ሰራዊት በግልና በቡድን በመሆን እየሸሹ ነው ያሉት ምንጮች፣ ብዛት ያለው ሰራዊት ደግሞ ፋኖ በተባለው ታጣቂ ኃይል የግድያና የድብደባ ወንጀል እየተፈጸመባቸው ይገኛሉ ተብሏል። ፋኖ የሚባለው ኢመደባዊ ቡድን
this guy they say from diaspora community joined the Ethiopian army. He was controversial guy from Atlanta, Georgia.
ከውስጥ የተገኙ መረጃዎች ያመለክታሉ። ሰራዊቱ ውስጥ በተፈጠረው የመከፋፈልና የመፈራረስ አደጋን ተከትሎ
eyeglass and
ካድሬዎችና የሰራዊቱ ቁንጮ የሆኑት አዛዦች በደሴ ኮምቦልቻና ወራ ባቦ ግንባሮች ላይ ያሉትን የሰራዊቱን አባላት የማባበል ሙከራ እያደረጉ ናቸው ተብሏል። ጀነራል ባጫ ደበሌ፣ ሌተናል ጀነራል ሐሰን ኢብራሂም፣ ሜጀር ጀነራል መሐመድ ሰማና አቶ ደመቀ መኮንን
all these are Ethiopian soldiers surrendered to TDF forces.
ደቡብ ወሎ ተሰማርተው ነበር። ሻለቃ ፍስሐ 46
So I just want to show you
መክዳትን በተመለከተ
so if you see some of those surrendered to TDF forces are very, very young. Could be 14, 15, 16. And they are not supposed to be in the military. I think if detailed investigation conducted on those joining the Ethiopian forces, military forces, Abiy Ahmed could be accused or could be punished for allowing these very young kids use them as a child soldier. The Ethiopian government claimed TDF is using child soldiers, but his hand is not clean from that kind of accusation. From multiple media sources, you can get it. And you can use these young kids speaking about their experience, how they are treated by Fano, how they are treated when they're injured, when their friends killed in the battle, how the Fano is shooting them from behind, even advising others not to join the army, especially those who are coming from Oromia and other areas. They are advising them not to join the army. They are telling them the situation is different. This is not about saving Ethiopia. This is not saving about Ethiopia. They are mistreated. They are disrespected. They are killed by Fano. They are telling. But what the others do, what those teenagers do. Number one, they are forced to join the military by cadres, prosperity cadres. Some of them misled by financial means, because of lack of employment. the only choice is joining the military or joining the police. Nothing else. A lot of people, many millions unemployed in Ethiopia. Many high unemployment. Most of them, they live on selling coffee, just day-to-day activity. So this is the situation we are facing, and Abiy Ahmed don't care about all these very young child soldiers crying for their mother, crying for their father, crying, and even advising their fellow youngsters. So he don't care. He don't care. What he care about bombarding Tigrayan citizens, Tigrayan civilians, Tigrayan structure, despite losing the battle. Now the battle is at Kombolcha and the Dase front. He told, and the Amhara administrative told everyone, young or old, to have whatever they have and defend Dase and the Kombolcha without training. The thing is, the trained, heavily armed Ethiopian forces couldn't defend. Now they can defend by knives, machetes, and other sticks. This is calling for maximum bloodshed in that area. Maximum bloodshed. So we're going to follow it. But please, the global community, end your silence. Please implement no-fly zone in Mekelle in Tigray region before too late, before, I don't know what you're waiting for. You want millions to die, thousands to die, or the whole region to be destroyed before you act? So that is the situation we are facing. I know you are giving warning and threats, but it's not working with Abiy Ahmed and Isaias Afwerki and their supporters. It's not working. Your warning, your concern is not working. So that's the situation. That's the update I have for today. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time with Concerned Citizens Media. Please comment, share, like my video. I will be back with other news and update. Thank you. Be safe and so long, everyone.